Most cruisers think the only way their cruise is going to end early is if they miss their ship. But that's not exactly true. More cruisers than ever are being kicked off the ship at a port of call and told to find their own way home. And it has nothing to do with them missing the all-aboard time. Today I'm going to give you the 9 biggest reasons passengers are being removed from their ship and what you can do to make sure this doesn't happen to you. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you the cruise insider information you need to avoid mistakes, save money, and protect yourself so that you can have your best cruise ever. When I first started cruising, I guess it was a different era because you never heard of fights or brawls or physical aggression on cruise ships. It rarely happened. Unfortunately, these days, it has become more common. And this is one of the more common reasons that people are actually kicked off ships and not allowed to continue their cruise and left with the bill to find their own way home. Now, there's a whole range of severity that this can take, but a lot of times with drinking a lot of alcohol, people lose some of their inhibitions, and I've seen it on a cruise ship or two where somebody will get into a shoving match or a pushing match or get mad with somebody and try to block them physically from leaving an area. Any aggression of a physical nature like that can get you in big trouble. The cruise ship can decide to even confine you into your room or a certain area of the ship while they investigate, and they can certainly remove you from the ship at the next port of call, and in some more severe circumstances, hand you over to authorities at the next port of call. In fact, a high-profile example of this happened on Harmony of the Seas back in November when 2 social media live streamers who had some kind of online feud going let it boil over into real life on board Harmony of the Seas. They actually got into a physical altercation and they were removed from the ship and had to find their own way back home. In fact, it went further than that. They were banned for life from Royal Caribbean. And the violence doesn't have to be physical in order for you to get kicked off of that ship early. In fact, if you are abusive to crew members verbally, that's warrant enough for them to take you off that ship at the next port of call and have you find your own way home. Cruise lines really have a zero tolerance policy towards this. Now, many crew members face unhappy passengers from time to time, but there's a level you can take it to. And if you start getting aggressive with your language, that can be taken seriously and you can even be confined by security until the next port. And then if something upsets you while you're on your cruise and you make some kind of offhand comment, which could be perceived as a threat related to a gun or a bomb or something of that nature, that also will get you kicked off that ship. Cruise ships take these kind of threats just as seriously as airports do. After all, you're out in the middle of the ocean, so if somebody's making that kind of claim, it's going to be taken very seriously, whether it's true or not. Normally, these kind of incidents happen around alcohol. So just be careful. And if you're getting upset about something, just walk away for a minute. Take it to guest services. Complain to somebody in a more calm fashion. And that will save your entire vacation. In a minute, I'm going to get to a couple reasons people are being removed from their ship that catch cruisers by surprise. But first, let's go over this one obvious one, yet still people are getting kicked off for this every single month. And that is bringing on prohibited items, particularly drugs that are illegal, and even marijuana, whether or not it's legal in your state. It's prohibited on cruise ships. And if you try to bring that on, which people do, and it's found, you're likely to be kicked off that ship at the next port. Cruise lines take this very seriously and they have a zero tolerance policy. And while it does not always get found at check-in and people make it on board their ship with these things, oftentimes it's discovered later on and they don't end up finishing that cruise. Even if you have something as simple as CBD gummies. There was a woman who was kicked off the ship for that, even though she had a prescription for them. They're still not allowed on cruise ships. And as a more serious example, there was a passenger just last July on Virgin Scarlet Lady that was kicked off the ship in Crete, Greece, and left there to find his own way back home because he was found to be carrying and even distributing some illegal drugs on board. Most cruisers are aware that one of the biggest hazards you can have at sea is a fire, and cruise lines are vigilant at preventing this. That is why they are so strict about smoking, no smoking in your cabins, no smoking on your balcony. They only have specific designated areas with cameras, so they're monitoring what's going on around those smokers. And if you violate that policy and try to smoke in an area you're not supposed to or in your room, you not only can be fined, if the captain deems it a risk, they can actually kick you off the ship, and passengers have been kicked off the ship for that. And then it's not only smoking. If you manage to bring some candles on board and light those and have an open flame in your cabin, that is also a severe violation. And then for some reason, there's always these pranksters on board a few ships that do something silly with regard to safety and maybe call a fake man overboard or pull a fire alarm as a joke. Those actions will not only get you in trouble, perhaps legally, but they will also get you kicked off that ship at the next port of call. If you've ever been on a cruise and you've seen somebody do something that seemed kind of risky, let me know what that was in the comments below, because I've been on a ton of cruises and I've seen this a lot, especially people kind of leaning over, climbing up a little bit on their balcony. I mean, it wouldn't take much or a little bit of a slip and you're falling right overboard. Unfortunately, due to the incredible growth of social media these days, people are pulling all kinds of crazy stunts to try to get a video that's going to go viral, including standing on, sitting on, leaning over their balconies. And this is taken very seriously by cruise ship captains. And there are cameras all over the exterior of these ships. They can see most balconies. And if you're doing something like this, there's a very good chance you'll be spotted and then kicked off that ship at the very next port of call. It's not worth it, ruining your vacation and then having to spend a whole bunch of money to get yourself back home because they just leave you off of the ship. But there's one reason that could catch any of us off guard. I'll tell you about that next. But first, if you're looking to book a cruise, we maintain a list of the best cruise deals you can book right now. If you'd like a copy, just comment deals or click on the deals link in our description. One thing I'm sure we all hope never happens to us on a cruise is that we get sick or have some kind of serious medical issue. And unfortunately, if that happens, there's a good chance you could be removed from the ship at the next port of call, especially if it's something serious that the medical center on board doesn't think they can really handle. Passengers are frequently transferred to hospitals at the next port of call. And if that happens, there's a really good chance you'll be under care for some period of time and you won't be able to get back to the ship, and they will just leave your things with the port authority for you to collect once you get out of that hospital. But you'll be left having to find your way back home. This is one reason travel insurance is so important, because if you have a medical event like that, most insurance companies are not going to cover it overseas in some of these foreign countries. And even if they do cover some of it, they're not going to cover any of the travel related or other expenses to get you back home, or God forbid you need medical transport back home. That's extremely expensive. I put a link to one of the travel insurance companies that I use for cruising. You can check that out if you're interested, but you should have some kind of cruise travel insurance to protect yourself from this event, because this is one of those reasons that people get removed from the ship that you really can't predict. Things happen, life happens, but being prepared will help save you thousands of dollars if you're ever in this situation. And it's not just a severe medical event that requires hospitalization that can get you removed from the ship. Cruise lines are also very concerned about communicable illnesses, because on these confined ships, they tend to spread fast. And if something starts going around, or if you get on board and then start having some kind of symptoms and they treat you at the medical center, they're going to give you specific instructions. If they think other passengers are at risk, they're going to tell you to stay in your room. And if you don't follow these types of instructions and are going out and about the ship and doing things that they don't want you to do, there's a good chance they'll remove you from that ship at the next port airport because they'll see you as somebody who's not willing to follow health instructions for the protection of other passengers. This next thing makes a lot of cruisers mad. But first, if you would take a minute and subscribe to our channel, hit that like button. It helps us grow and you won't miss our next video. One of the things I really love about cruising is the oceans. I love looking out at that clear blue water. I love going places like Ocean Cay where they are trying to preserve and maintain coral reefs and build new ones. But there's a big eyesore in a lot of these oceans, and that is pollution. And cruise lines take very seriously anybody contributing to that, meaning anything you throw overboard is a clear violation of the cruise line's policy, and it is also against international law. Some passengers make the wrong assumption that if they just throw a piece of bread or something biodegradable overboard, it's no big deal. But that's not true. Cruise lines don't really care what you're throwing overboard. They don't want you doing any of it. They don't want to police it. And if they see it, you'll clearly be warned, and you could even be removed from the ship, depending on the severity or the frequency, or if you ignore their request to stop doing it. And it's not only an environmental issue, this can be a hazard to other passengers on board. If something gets thrown over a deck, it can hit somebody on a deck below or a balcony below. And cruise lines would rather just not deal with that. If they find it, it's easier for them to remove you from that ship. Now, we're not talking here about accidental things like a hat that just gets blown overboard. We're talking about intentionally throwing things overboard, and people do. And there's a high incidence of people getting caught, fined, and removed from ships at the next port of call. And then this next thing you might not even think about. One thing that surprised me is hearing passengers getting removed from a ship for giving alcohol to minors. Cruise lines do not tolerate this. They strictly adhere to their alcohol age limit, and it can depend varying on the cruise you take. So if you take a cruise that's leaving from the United States, that drinking age is typically going to be 21 on board. But if you take a cruise from Europe, it could be 18. But you cannot give alcohol to minors below that age without some severe consequences. People have made the wrong assumption that because it's their child or their grandchild or their family member that nobody cares, but on a cruise ship, they adhere strictly to an age policy. You could actually be removed from the ship at the next port of call. Something as innocent as handing a beer to your 20-year-old son on a cruise ship could have some serious consequences. You want to think twice about that in order to protect your cruise vacation. So now that your cruise won't be ending prematurely, a lot of cruisers waste a lot of time and money on their cruise because they aren't aware of some insider crew member tips. I'll tell you all about those right here.